So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths Practice Paper Foundation Set 3 Paper 2, which is a calculator paper. Now before we get started working through this paper, a little reminder that if you're wanting access to this paper to give it a try before watching through this video, then all you need to do is click in the link in the description, and I'll also include a question breakdown so you can see which topic refers to each of the questions, just in case you struggle or need further revision on that particular topic. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1 says circle the cube number. So if this just need to go through your memory of cube numbers, in which the one that you need to circle is 8, as that's 2 cubed. For question 2, it says on a circle, which of these is the longest? It says circle your answer. Well, if I just do a little sketch, well, actually, let's draw an accurate circle. So the blue line represents the circumference. A chord is basically a line that goes from one end of the circumference to another. The diameter is a length that goes all the way from one end to the other through the center, and the radius is half the diameter. So which of those lines is the longest? It's going to be the circumference. Question 3 then says add -5 to -3. A plus and a minus become a minus, so that's -5 minus 3, which is -8. For question 4, it says circle the unit of mass. Well, millimeters is a measure of length, litres is a measure of volume or capacity, and degrees is a measure of temperature. So the one that we need to circle is grams. Moving on to question 5, it says write down all the whole numbers between 91 and 120 that have exactly 2 digits the same. So for this we need to write down 99. Now you can write these numbers in any order, but you would lose marks for any numbers that you forgot. So we should have 99, 100, 101, 110, and 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, and 119. Then for question 5, it says Katie is facing north. She does a 3/4 turn anti-clockwise. She then turns 135 degrees clockwise. What direction is she now facing? Now, obviously here you could use a protractor, but going 3/4 turn is basically going to end up here. And then from that point, we're then going 135 degrees clockwise, in which we end up in this direction here, which is southwest, and is at 225. So again here, if we measure this as being 90 degrees, this as being 135, so 135 plus 90 is 225, but again the direction is going to be southwest. Then moving on to question 7, it says here is a bank statement with 3 missing values. Now credit is basically what's being added, debit is what's being subtracted. So here I need to do, for this one here, what I need to do is do 324.85 minus 37.60, because I want to know the difference between those two numbers, in which I should end up with 287.25. Then for this value here, we're spending £50, so that's going to be 324.85 minus 50, which gives me an answer of 274.85. And then for the final value, I need to do 274.85 minus 61.84, which gives me a ending balance of 213.01. Again, don't worry about the pound signs because the pound sign is in the column headings. Moving on to question 8a, it says simplify. So here if we simplify the a's, I've got 3a take away a, which is 2a, and then add up the b's, I've got 7b plus 4b, which is 11b. Question 8b, we're just multiplying out the brackets, so 4 times 2d is 8d, and 4 times 5 is 20. Question 8c, it says factorise. So here I want to take out which is the biggest number that goes into both 15 and 18. That's going to be 3. There's no common letter, So then it's just a case of starting my bracket. So 3 times what gives me 15x? Well, that's going to be 5x plus, and 3 times what gives me 18y, and that's going to be 6y. Moving on to question 9, it says Jack and Liam each get the same pocket money. Jack spends 75% of his and he's left with £2 left. Liam spends 40% of his. How much does Liam have left? So for this, using the first bit of information that we've got, Jack spends 75% of his and he's got £2 left. So that means that 25% equals £2. Now if 25% equals £2, then 100% is going to be 4 times 2, which is £8. So this is the amount of pocket money, or the total pocket money that both Liam and Jack get. So then to work out Liam, so Liam spends 40% of £8. So to work that out, all I then need to do is do 0.4 times 8. I don't know what I've put. There we go. Times 8, which equals £3.20. So then Liam has left. I just need to subtract £8 and £3.20, which leaves a total of £4.80. Moving on to question 10, it says draw 2 straight lines inside the rectangle to split it into 1 trapezium and 2 right angle triangles. So we need to put our answer in the second block so we can practice in the first one. We should have something that looks, and again these lines should be drawn with a ruler. You could have something that looks like that, where it's going into the corner. Let me just do that. Actually, let's do it a little bit properly, a bit more accurate. So you want to go make sure you're straight into the corner. And again, there's lots of different ways in which this could be correct. So as long as you can see a trapezium and 2 right angle triangles, then you will be absolutely fine to get the full marks. But I would say this is probably the most straightforward answer you can have. Moving on to question 11, it says Joe sold 132 mugs. 1/4 of the mugs were small, the rest were large. Joe made a profit of £2.45 on each small mug, and she made twice as much profit on each large mug. And the question is asking us to find out what the total profit is. So for this, what we need to do is, first of all, is find out how many small mugs there were and how many large mugs there were. So if we do 1/4 of 132, in which all I need to do is do 1/4 times 132, that comes up to an answer of 33. So 33 small mugs. Then to work out how many large mugs there were, well, we know that there was a total of 132 minus 33, which equals 99. So there's 99 large mugs. Now from this, now we know the quantity of each, we can now work out the profit. So the profit from the small mugs, well, she made £2.45 profit on each mug. If we multiply that by 33, I get a total of £80 and 85 pence. Now from the large mugs, she makes twice as much as she did on the small mugs. So if she made £2.45 on a small mug, then she made £4.90 on a large mug, and we need to multiply that by the number of large mugs that she sold. So here we're making a total profit of £485 and 10 pence. So now the question is asking for the total profit. So all we need to do is just add those two profit amounts up, in which we get an answer of £565 and 95 pence. Moving on to question 12, it says write down the integer values where x is between 1 and 7 inclusive of 1. So the numbers we need to write are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Then for question 13, it says increase 400 by 37%. So remember that 100% plus, because we're increasing 37%, is 137%. Convert that into a decimal and we get 1.37. So all I need to do on the calculator is multiply 400 by 1.37, in which I get an answer of 548. Now alternatively, you could work out what 10% is, then 10%, then 5%, then 1%. Work it out individually till you get that 37%, add it all up. But I would say using decimal multipliers is definitely a lot quicker. Question 14, it says, what is the maximum possible order of rotational symmetry of a quadrilateral? Circle your answer. Well, the one that it can be is going to be the answer 4. And again, if I just draw a square, it's got rotational symmetry of 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, a rhombus may have the same thing as well. Moving on to question 15, it says Han is trying to work out the size of angle X. He assumes that ABC is a straight line. What answer should he get? Well, if it's a straight line, then we can then work out what this angle here is by doing 180 minus 115, which gives me an answer of 65. So X is going to equal 180 minus 40 minus 65, because angles in a triangle add up to 180. And if I work that out, I get an answer of 75 degrees. For question 15b, it says, in fact, angle ABC is 178 degrees as shown. What effect does this have on the size of angle X? Well, if I now work this angle out here, if I do 360 minus 115 minus 178, because angles around a point add up to 360, I get an answer of 67 degrees. So then now working out what X is, again remembering that angles in a triangle add up to 180, so minus 67 minus 40 gives me an answer of 73 degrees. So what effect does this have? Well, X will be smaller. And it's really important that you do write that, because the question is asking for what effect does it have, not what is the new value of X. Moving on to question 18, it says the speed of the International Space Station is 27,576 kilometers per hour. The station travels 42,600 kilometers in one orbit. Work out the full number of full orbits the station does in one day. So for this, what we need to recognize is, well, we've given the speed in kilometers per hour, and we want to know how many orbits it does in one day. So one day equals 24 hours. So then if we then do 27576 multiplied by 24, type that into my calculator, I get 661,824 kilometers. So that's the total distance it travels in one day. So now it says that the orbit, so the number of orbits is then going to be 661,824 divided by 42600. And if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer 15.535 and a long decimal number there. Now the question is asking to work out how many full orbits there are, so we need to round this number down. So the answer then is 15. Moving on to 16b, it says convert 27,576 km per hour in meters per second. So for this, if I write down this as a fraction, I get 27576, and that's kilometers per 1 hour. Now what I need to do is I need to convert kilometers into meters. So to convert that into meters, I multiply that by 1000, in which I get 27576, 1, 2, 3. Then to convert hours into seconds, well, if I multiply that number by 60, that will give me minutes. And then if I then multiply that by another 60, I get seconds. So then if I then do 1 times 60 times 60, I get an answer of 3,600. So all that's left for me to then do is type this all into my calculator. So if I do 27576,000 divided by 3,600, I get an answer of, let's not try and write in a highlighter, I get an answer of 7660. Moving on to question 17, it says here is a shape. A method to estimate the area of the shape is below. Put the shape in a rectangle grid of dots. Write down the number of dots in the shape as a fraction of the number of total dots. Work out the fraction of this and of the area of the rectangle. And the question is asking us to use this method to estimate the area of the shape. So for this, we know that the total number of dots is 20. So the inside dots is 16. The total area is 6 times 7.5, which gives me an answer of, if I just quickly type that into my calculator, gives me an answer of 45 centimetres square. So to work out the area using this method, it's going to be 16 over 20 multiplied by 45, which gives me an answer of 36. It then says, how could you improve this method to give it a more reliable answer? Well, again, a couple of things you could say is you could say use smaller or more dots. And there we go. But I would say probably more dots would be a better answer. So use more dots. Moving on to question 18, it says the graph shows a shop daily's profit over 2 weeks, and it says circle the profit on Tuesday of week 2. Now week 2, if I just zoom out, is the solid line and Tuesday is here. So working that value out, I would say it's going to be 172. It then says the total profit for Monday for the 2 weeks is 260. On which day is the highest total profit? So if I do question B here, so for Tuesday, I'm going to add 140 to 172. So that's 140 plus 172. That comes up to a total of 312. For Wednesday, that's going to be 120 plus 132, which is 252. For Thursday, it's going to be 124 plus 160, which is 284. For Friday, it's going to be 340, and for Saturday, it's 352. So which day's got a greater profit? It's going to be Saturday. It then says for C, the manager decides to close the shop on one day each week. Use the graph to decide which day he should close. Give a reason for your answer. Now for this, there's a couple of reasons which you could say. So you could say Monday. And the reason for that is because it's the lowest profit on a single day. Or you could say Wednesday. And the reason for that is because it's the lowest profit over 2 weeks. In terms of the lowest profit on a day in a week. So any of those answers, definitely don't give both, just give one or the other and you should be absolutely fine. Then says on 18D, Ruby says about the graph that Friday week 1 is 6 large squares high and Friday week 2 is 3 large squares high. So the profit on Friday week 1 is double Friday week 2. Is she correct? And the answer you need to write here is no. And there's a couple of reasons why she's wrong, is because if we go back to the graph, we can see here we've got a broken axis. So it's difficult to tell which one is going to be the case. So here you could say no, because we've got a broken axis. And you could also then just quote a few numbers. So you could also say that 200 is not double of 140. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine for the 2 marks. Moving on to question 19, it says the perimeter of a kite ABCD is 24. The length of the side AB is 3 centimeters. Work out the length of side CD. Well, if we say that this is 3 and the side that we don't know is X, and CD and BC is X. So here we can then say, if we add up the perimeter, that 2x plus 6 equals 24. And if we solve this equation, 2x equals 18. So x equals 9. So the one that we want to circle then is our third option. It then says that Chris is simplifying 3n to the power of 5 multiplied by 2n to the power of 4. His answer is 5n to the power of 20. Identify any mistakes that he has made. So he's actually made 2 mistakes because 3 times 2 is 6, not 5. And n to the power of 5 multiplied by n to the power of 4 is n to the power of 9 because we add the powers when we're multiplying, and it's not n to the power of 20. So they're the 2 mistakes that Chris has made. Moving on to question 21, it says the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. A steel sphere has a radius of 9 centimeters is shown, and the question is asking us to work out the volume of the sphere. So all we need to do here is substitute r equals 9 into this formula. So I've got 4/3 times pi times 9 cubed, and if I enter all of this on the calculator, I strongly recommend you use the fraction button on your calculator or put 4/3 in brackets, and you should end up with an answer of either 972 pi or an answer of 3053.628059. Now if you do round your answer up, or you give your answer as written there, because there's no indication in the question that they want you to round the answer, if you do round the answer, always make sure you've stated what you've rounded it to. So I'm going to round it to 1 decimal place, but if your rounding is a bit shady, then I would basically just copy what's on your calculator. Moving on to 21b, it says the density of the steel is 7.8 grams per cubic centimetre. Work out the mass of a sphere. Well, density is equal to mass over volume. Now if we do a bit of rearranging, that mass is equal to density multiplied by the volume. So the mass is going to be 7.8 multiplied by our answer in part A. So that was 972 pi, or we could use 3053.6 or 3053.628 blah blah blah, in which you should have an answer that's roughly, or the exact value is 37908 over 5 pi, or you can write it as 23818.29886, and again you can round the answer up, so 23818.3 to 1 decimal place. But basically what you're doing is, as long as you multiply 7.8 by your answer in part A, and then write down the answer, you will get the 2 marks for that. Moving on to question 22, it says Dev invests £1,500 for 2 years. His compound interest rate is 1.6% per year. Which calculation works out the total value after 2 years? Well, here for compound interest, we do 100% plus 1.6 as we're adding, and that gives us 101.6. If I then convert that into a decimal by dividing by 100, I get 1.016. So that there is my decimal multiplier. Then for compound interest, it's the original multiplied by the decimal multiplier after the increase or decrease to the power of time. The original amount is 1500. The decimal multiplier is 1.016 and the time is 2 years. So the one we want to circle is the last option. It then says Emma invests £1,500 for 2 years. The interest rate is 1.8% for the first year and 1.3% for the second year. Whose investment is worth more after 2 years? Well, if I work out Dev's, that was 1,500 multiplied by 1.016 to the power of 2. I get an answer of 1548.384. Then if I work out Emma's, that's going to be 1,500 times, and if I do the decimal multipliers, so again here, that's going to be 1.018, and that's going to be 1.013. It doesn't matter what order you do them in which we should get an answer for Emma as 1546.851. So which of these two numbers is higher? It's going to be Dev. Then moving on to question 23a, it says expand and simplify. So if we use our loops, we end up with x squared minus 4x and then plus 5x minus 20. Collect the middle two terms, in which we end up with x squared plus 1x minus 20. 23b, it says solve, so either, as it's already equal to 0, so either x minus 8 equals 0 or x plus 7 equals 0, in which we end up with x equals 8 or x equals minus 7. So the answer then is 8 or minus 7. You can write and. It's entirely up to you which one you want to go for. Then moving on to question 24, it says write 225 as a product of its prime. So there's two ways in which you can do this. You either use a factor tree, so I've got 25 times 5, actually no, 25 times, and it's going to be 9, and then that's going to be 5 times 5, and they're both prime, and this is going to be 3 and 3, so it's going to be 3 squared multiplied by 5 squared, and because it's not said write it in index form, you could write it as 3 times 3 times 5 times 5, but I personally would use indices. Now if you've got a Casio calculator, you can also do this on your calculator. I'm just show you how you can do that. So if you enter 225, press equals, and then press shift, and then the fact, it comes up with the answer for you. So again, you could simply write that down and you would get full marks for it. For question 25, it says the angles in triangle A are in the ratio of 1 to 2 to 3. The angles in triangle B are in the ratio of 4, 5 to 6. Jack says that the middle number in each ratio is 1/3 of the total, so one of the angles in each triangle is 60 degrees. Is he correct? So first of all, if we work out the angles in triangle A, so here we've got a total of 6 parts, and those 6 parts add up to 180 because there's 180 degrees in angles in a triangle. So one part therefore is going to equal 30 degrees. So then the angles, if I multiply the numbers in the ratio for triangle A, it's going to be 1 times 30, which is 30, 2 times 30, which is 60, and 3 times 30, which is 90. I then do the same for triangle B, in which I've got 15 parts, which equals 180. So one part is going to equal 12 degrees. So then if I then do 4 times 12, which is 48, 5 times 12, which is 60, and 6 times 12, which is 72. As you can see, I've got 60 degrees in both. So is he correct? Yes, he is. Moving on to question 26, it says here is a graph of a straight line. Work out the equation of the line. So for this, what I need to do is use y equals mx plus c. And c is the y-intercept, and we can see that it intercepts the y-axis at 3. So c equals 3. So the next thing for me then to do is to work out the gradient, which is m. So here if I pick two nice coordinates, so I'm going to go for these two coordinates here. And the gradient is the distance up, which is 2, divided by the distance across, which is 4. So it's 2 divided by 4, which is a half. So m equals a half. Then if I substitute these two numbers into y equals mx plus c, I get an equation of y equals a half x plus 3. Then for question 26b, it says work out the coordinates of the y-intercept of the line that is parallel to the line of part A and passes through 4, 1. Well, if I mark down what 4, 1 is, now here I can see that from my triangle, it goes down 2 blocks and across 4. So if I go down 2 blocks, that's 1, 2, and then go 4 across, it's going to hit the y-axis at this point here, which is at -1. So this coordinate is 1 I'm wanting, and that coordinate there is 0, -1. Then moving on to our last question, it says that a charity collection was made. Information about the amounts given by men is shown in the table. The mean amount given by women is £6.30 per person. Compare the mean amounts given by men and women. So what we need to do is work out the estimated mean from this group table. So finding out the midpoint. So to find the midpoint, I just add the upper bound and the lower bound together and divide by 2. So that's going to be 2.5. 10 plus 5 is 15. Divided by 2 is 7.5. And 15 plus 10 is 25. Divided by 2 is 12.5. Then I need to work out my fx value, so I multiply the midpoint by the frequency, in which I should end up with answers of 27.5, 52.5 and 25. Then all I need to do is then work out the total, which is 105. Now the estimated mean for the men is going to be the total fx, which is 105, divided by the total frequency, and working that on my calculator I get an answer of £5.25. So all that's left for me to then do is compare the women, which were £6.30 per person, and men, which is £5.25 per person. So my conclusion, or the comparison, is that women gave more money. And there we go.